Allow me to graciously extend a word of thanks for you joining us today at the session where we present to you our annual performance presentation for the year ended 2022-2023. Just to make an acknowledgement that this is a second session. The first one that we undertook was with the media earlier today, where we gave an update, still in the interest of transparency and accountability as uMngeni-uThukela, so that they in turn could propagate the message to the greater public about what it is that we have undertaken. While the board of, the chairperson of the board of uMngeni-uThukela, Advocate Kuzwayo, will no doubt expand, I just want to indicate to colleagues that while we are uMngeni-uThukela, the presentations that we will see today will in certain instances make reference to uMngeni, the erstwhile water board. This is because as we are reporting for the financial year ended, which preceded the reconfiguration of uMhlathuze and uMngeni to become uMngeni-uThukela as we today know it. So we just don't want stakeholders and customers leaving with the notion perhaps that we might have reneged to the old status, as it were. It's still one water board, uMngeni-uThukela, as placed into being by the Minister of Water and Sanitation, the Honorable Senzo Mchunu. I would just like to acknowledge the presence of the board of uMngeni-uThukela, the senior management of the board of uMngeni-uThukela, and also from our stakeholders that are here. No doubt some of them still are joining us as we proceed. We have the Office of the Auditor General of South Africa, colleagues from the Durban Chamber of Commerce. From the financial sector, we have Nedbank, Standard Bank. Our municipal colleagues, we have UMDM, Uku District, Umsunduzi, we have Usiza Water, and we've also got the eThekwini Municipality. As I say, we will begin shortly, and thank you very much once again. Can I now invite the board chairperson, or Advocate Vusi Kuzwayo, to come and give us a message from the board. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen, guests, board members, and board management and staff who is in attendance this afternoon. As the program director has just indicated, the purpose for today is about the 2022-2023 financial year audit opinion as pronounced by the Auditor General. So we're gonna share with you how the AG found uMngeni-uThukela water in its pre-qualification format, because today's report is about the erstwhile uMngeni water board. We would similarly have an opportunity where we present uMhlathuze water board report, which both pulled together are a precursor to our first uMngeni-uThukela water board report, which would be a consolidation of the two boards reporting under one leadership, which is this board. We found the entity, I think, in its living stage, because it has staff, it has all obligations, it has contracts and everything. Hence, when standing in front of you, we take no credit, nor we take no blame, but are saying we welcome the positions where we're finding ourselves, where there are areas of irregularities. Indeed, we are responsible for them. but we would then, at the end of my comments, then reflect really on how we believe we can probably add just a little value into the processes that we found within the organization. Ordinarily, this is just an oversight, and in my view, it's an oversight that might appear lacking details, but we all do know there is a state of the province address which is delivered by Premier. So I think as of today, this is state of the board address which is being delivered by me on behalf of the entire board. So this is the audit opinion for the 2022-2023 financial year. So as a board of uMngeni-uThukela, we achieved an unqualified audit report for the financial year ended 30 June 2023. It's a report whereby the AG, in the conduct of the statutory audit, reviewed, queried, and got explanations, and indeed came to a conclusion that no, the affairs of the organization are sound, hence the unqualified report. The Chief Financial Officer ordinarily is the officer who in the main interacts with the AG, and where certain queries can be, I think, satisfactorily be explained, ordinarily would seek not guidance but support from the Chief Executive Officer, because the two are the ones at the end of the day, when we talk about accountability, we are expecting answers from them. So the AG similarly would engage with them, and before they issue or release any final opinions, they will sit or meet with the chair. So one has had that opportunity with the AG, and the AG similarly had presented or met with the Audit, Finance and Risk Committee of the board, because those are the necessary tiers of accountability that we at the end as the board are pinning, not hope, but pinning that the transparency would permeate through. The AG, therefore, has issued the report. It's an unqualified report. Like all other AG reports, you'll find there are certain matters of emphasis. I didn't see matters of emphasis in our reports, but I do know that there are material irregularities, and such material irregularities, I think they aren't what one would have frowned upon, because the majority of them have already been investigated. There is one which has been finalized, concluded, and then the other two, they started with the SIU as early as in June this year. But again, those are matters where accountability is the domain. So again, us would just follow those processes and report to the AG, because they are the ones who reported or escalated such matters. I just share with you the spend on infrastructure upgrades and rehabilitation. Again, this is just a mere highlight. The detail to this would be shared by acting COO, and the significant progress really on the implementation of a capital and structural plan for 2022-23. There is a sum of it's 1,793 million, which was spent on bulk infrastructure augmentation, expansion, upgrades, and rehabilitation projects. Of this amount, 460 million went towards projects of rural development. Then there's an overall 63% of set water infrastructure project milestones which were met for the reporting period. As we all know, the rural development one is really talking to would precede the rural development report that we would table in the 2023-2024 year, because the extension of the mandate and the boundaries of uMngeni-uThukela, it covers the whole province. Therefore, one would imagine that with the kind of reserves that we're going to share with you, there is much that has to be covered in order to take water to where the people are. It's we say it's a constitutional right, which is a fundamental right to have access to clean water. Therefore, that is the one of the objectives that we have to work towards. There are performances against planned initiatives, and as one indicated, we found the organization in its living stage, hence its performance made up of 58 total annual measurable result indicators for which responsibility and accountabilities were agreed and targets approved with the entity at the start of the financial year. So the result talks to what was agreed and then achieved. So these, they include all statutory indicators, I think targeted by the executive authority, who is the shareholder representing, I think, the state, and communicated through to the board through a shareholder compact. For the period 1st July 2022 to 30 June 2023, 92% of the planned initiatives were implemented. Therefore, uMngeni Water has achieved excellent performance for the year, which is continuing its positive performance trends over the years. It's these kind of achievements that says to us as a board, we have a high bar which we've got to jump to. We would have failed if in the same period next year, one stands in front of you and we're talking about regressions. Similarly, with the revenue growth and profits, there is a very sound growth. The year under reporting revenue of the group, I think, was generated to 5.3 billion, which I think it's about 600 million, I think, more than the previous year. The net surplus is 1.2 billion, which similarly is the same figure in the prior year. But I think it's also befitting to then say the balance sheet reserves were strengthened to 14.4 billion. That's the balance sheet. Hence, when one was attributing a remark relating to the extended mandate, therefore, a balance sheet sometimes helps when we go to some funders. Some might be here, so one is actually plowing the correct seeds and say, when you see uMngeni knocking at your door, don't look through a small window, just open the door, because we've got a very sound balance sheet. And the rest really would become what is feasible in relation to indicating that obviously our financial commitments, we respect them. This board has to step up and in all probability push for more revenue generation, for higher surplus. Because if we don't do that, and if this was a private-owned business, there would be no dividends. But as we stand here, we're seeing growth, but there will still be no dividends. But for us, it's the commitment, is the baiting that we took to say we can serve, we can add value into this glorious entity whose responsibility is to ensure that there is water for the people of the province. Economic transformation and job creation. I've said earlier in the first presentation, economic transformation and job creation is one of the masks that every organization really aspires and subscribes to. The only nag is when one were to talk to the actual numbers, how many jobs were created. The economic transformation in the main, if one were to drill down to the projects that Mr. Mazibulo may take to, you would, as I assure you, find that indeed there's a very high level of opportunities created at that level. Contrast that with job creation. The model that we really work on or rely upon, I believe that it could, in the long run, give to real numbers that we can talk to. But we have a policy that promotes, encourages the employment creation that creates real jobs. We would, in the year to come, be in I think a more informed position to then see what value we can add to have the good numbers that one can stand in front of everybody and say we are. As a board, as I indicated, we committed to a sound governance, and sound governance starts with appropriate leadership, I think at the management level, because the assumption I make is that the minister has put together a board which consists of men and women who have sound governance, credentials, capabilities, and therefore the minister and the public expect a sound governance as an outcome from them. The entity has been reconfigured, so any reconfigured entity, obviously, you will always have a grade. As we stand, uMngeni-uThukela Water Board is now at par with Rand Water. So what it means when we fill our positions, we need to fill our positions at the correct grade level. And therefore, everything starts with the first employee of the board. The HR committee and REMCO has met. They will be presenting to the board on the 29th of November the necessary job profile, the necessary processes that we need to approve and engage on in order to ensure that we have a CEO who is permanent, who then takes the cue from the board and ensure that the microstructure is put in place. We're not a board that would seek to micromanage, because if we were to do that, any mishaps as a result of a role we might have played in micromanaging will disentitle us from standing on the side of accountability to an individual. We would try, as we are committed to sound governance, to have similarly a transparent governance. The positions really that are vacant in the organization, I would say they are not vacant by design, but probably they became vacant by chance and coincidence, in the sense that in any event, during the reconfiguration, you wouldn't fill a position, because the question would always be, which one are you filling? You are merging two entities, and we have warm bodies in some of the positions. Therefore, we are taking a very pragmatic approach, because we respect human and their obligations and their rights and their expectations. Therefore, we are involved not in a child's play, I think, scenario, but we're involved in a serious, sensitive exercise that we are expected and required to go through. Ordinarily, if there was a vacancy and the board had been reconfigured, I don't think that we would have had to wait too long. But what we place before you is that we're almost 2 months on the job. And with the 2 months on the job, if you were to drill down to what we've been involved in, I'm sure you'll find hope that this team is committed to add value to the organization, which is not a young organization. It's a configured organization. If we were to add the years of both entities, you will come to more than 100 years. So we are actually steering an organization that the CFO will tell you there's resilience in the organization. Us is just to ensure that our policies are clear. Our policies, they respond to what lawyers call the rule of law, because we can't pass a policy that discriminates. We can't pass a policy that disenfranchises anyone in relation to what he or she is entitled to in the organization. That we committed to. We are a board that comprises, I think, in the main of the demographics of the province and the country. Similarly, the management that we would want to see in place has to be representative. We wouldn't take pride to see one gender, not undermining, but one gender overly represented. I think in that regard and respect, you can then tell us we have failed, but give us an opportunity. Don't judge us now, judge us through our results. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for those wise words. I would also just like to acknowledge a very critical stakeholder to the operations of uMngeni-uThukela that I missed in my introductions, being the union leadership. We also have in our midst the NEHAU leadership at KZN provincial level, organized labor represented by its secretary, Ayanda Zulu, as well as the branch leadership as well. You are welcome. Can I now call upon the Chief Executive, Dr. Manana, to come and give us an organizational performance and overview? Thank you.
Thank you, Mashimane. I think you forgot acting. I'm not executive, chief executive, I'm acting. Thank you for the opportunity, recognizing the board, the chair, and the members of the board, our stakeholders. We are back here like we were last year. I'm not sure, apologies up front for maybe those at the back who can't see properly. We have a challenge of our background on the slide. But the reports from the executive arm of the organization will include 3 areas. Mine will be very short. I won't take long. The people who will drill down to what actually happened in the year will be a group financial officer as well as acting COO, Mr. Mazibuko. So this is me. To situate our point where we are as the organization, the chair has touched on this part. As we are in November, you are aware that this is what happened in July, and we are putting it as the department has reported this to the portfolio committee in Parliament, that what happened in June was the disestablishment of Mhlathuze Water and the name change of uMngeni Water to a new entity, uMngeni-uThukela, which is now spelled correctly in isiZulu. That N was missing. Now it is in a new name called, the water board is uMngeni-uThukela. The processes which ensued at that point are very important to note. That the boundaries of former uMngeni were extended to include those of former Mhlathuze, and the name change, of course, was effective from 1 July. And the disestablishment of Mhlathuze Water meant that assets, liabilities, and staff of that SYL organization were now moved to uMngeni-uThukela Water with effect from 1 July. We know that we have organized labor in our midst, and we are being regulated by a transfer agreement, which we need to finalize in a space of 12 months, if not earlier than that. And in front of you is a new board that the minister has appointed after the gazetting of the new entity. And within number 1, I need to emphasize the fact that this water board is a regional water utility, which is in line with the cabinet decision of 2012 that South Africa should have preferably water boards that link to provincial boundaries. So in our province, we are lucky that it was easy to take the 2 water boards and you cover the entire province. What is currently happening is that the finance people are now updating the Schedule 3B of the PFMA to include or to make sure that there is no duplication or there is no confusion on the listing of Mhlathuze Water. We are also here because we needed to comply to the prescripts by giving annual financial statements as well as annual reports to the stakeholders with the two entities as they existed by 30 June. These are the boundaries. I won't spend much time on this because you all know the point of emphasis here is that we are just going to be reporting now in November on former uMngeni, and next year, January, we will be in Richards Bay reporting on the former Mhlathuze. The organization, when it ended on the 30th, was structured as follows, and with the entry of members of Mhlathuze, we are no more 1,500, we are more than that, but these results were powered by a group of 1,500 in the main of uMngeni Water, including two subsidiaries, which is uMsintsi and uMngeni Water Services. And we have a little bit of commercial activity within uMngeni Water Services, which is going to be expanded as we go on. And in the morning, we did have a board member from uMsintsi amongst us. And this is how we were structured, and the results that you see are coming out of this structure. Because we have to execute within the confines of the shareholder compact, we have a strategy. There's an overarching strategy which talks to pillars that involve people and skills, that involve technology and relationships and partnerships, as well as the commitment culture and the growth strategy. This strategy means we have to grow, and we were also allowed by the cabinet decision to form regional water utilities, but we are also pursuing growth in other forms like diversification of our offerings. On the right-hand side of your screen, this is our architecture of the strategy, which you all know has to have vision, mission, and objectives. This annual report is actually based on these objectives. If you go to the actual results that we have achieved in all the 12 objectives, we have moved down by 4% from what we achieved last year. We had 94%, which was the highest over a period of 4 years. This time we went down to 90%, and pretty much reasons for that would be on the transformation objectives that we were dealing with. We had to park them, but because they were in the plan, you can't not score them. They become a factor in your achievement score. So those transformation initiatives are back on track since we are now one entity, because it would have made no sense to continue re-engineering the organization when you don't have everybody on board. So that was a plausible reason for us to not cheat the system and eliminate that element, which will have given us a higher score or a good report. We also, at this level, mine is to emphasize the point on how, being a socially responsive organization, how did we deal with the stakeholder support, and what were the key areas that we were focusing on. All our statutory stakeholders were interacted at various levels, especially the minister who has crisscrossed the province, commissioning projects that have been completed and working with the province, as well as the water service authorities during the floods in getting everything back on track. We also have dealt with a number of non-contracted stakeholders and those that are contracted, which are our customers as well, and all those that are internal. Key to the other point that I have mentioned and that the chairperson has mentioned, leadership and employee development is one of our competitive advantage, because we are paying much attention in developing through the array, or from the bottom ladder to the top ladder of your skills. There are, within the skills equilibrium, you get lower order skills, higher order skills, and intermediate skills. And in advanced economies, the portion of your higher order skills gives you an advantage over other countries, because the technology that you create and the practice on the ground becomes powered by new technological events. So we try a lot as uMngeni-uThukela to make sure that we do get artisan training in those areas. We did make sure that we are sharpening our members. You know our famous engineering production program, which we have been funded by the National Treasury. We continue to produce professional engineers, those who have the PR-Eng title at the end in various fields. We pride ourselves a lot on that, and we want to even make sure that in future we enhance this program, we double this number. Apprentices, you cannot have engineers without the ancillary staff and the intermediate skills, as I've indicated. They are also very important. And at entry level, the graduate trainee programs in various fields that are found within uMngeni Water programs have been given 40 graduate trainees. And then the in-service training students, the interns, are very much human resource development interventions that are normally overlooked, but an organization that invests in this is really an organization that invests in people. So I won't read all of these. You will see that in the report, but ours is to mention here that leadership development remains key. We also had community and environmental sustainability needs that we must fulfill, meaning the ESG, the Environmental and Sustainability and Governance Index of uMngeni-uThukela is very important, because we do have small businesses that we support with our CPG program. You will find it in the report in a specific chapter, as well as the temporary jobs that are created through our CAPEX program. And these jobs, you know that they may be seasonal or they may not be long-term or permanent, but they do a lot of leverage in communities and in the livelihoods of people who are around our projects. I think lastly, the person who is now going to give us the details of how many rands and how many dollars did we put in the bank, and how the organization is financially viable, because this is another mandate of all regional water utilities. The reason why you are putting water boards together, you want them to have economies of scale, and then to be able to be profitable more than they are when they are separate. Thank you very much.
CFO, if you could please come forward with your presentation on the financial reports. Thank you.
I would like to first maybe acknowledge my chairperson of the board, deputy chairperson, and our esteemed board members, and the executives of uMngeni, and then also humbly welcome all our esteemed guests, that is our customers, our strategic stakeholders, our bankers, our auditors. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to present the annual report or the financial results of the organization for 2022-2023. And these results, we started the financial year having come back from floods that occurred in April 2022. So we started the year in July, having some of our infrastructure being ravaged by the floods that actually happened. Secondly, in November, the minister then gazetted his intention to actually perform a reconfiguration between the two organizations. These activities were occurring during a very difficult economic state of the country. As we know, the economy is in a very terrible state. But we are happy to report these results as they show the entity's resilience, as the chair actually mentioned, to adverse circumstances. This statement is also affirmed by the Fitch ratings, which were issued in September 2023. This is now post the reconfiguration, where they've placed us on a AA+ rating against the sovereign rating of a BB. Sovereign rating is the country's rating. So the organization, whilst being a state-owned entity, is above the country's rating. Just starting with the income statement. Can I just move a bit because I'm looking at the presentation? I'll just, apologies. Yeah. So our revenue, we're reporting revenue of 5.2 billion rands. This is an increase of 344 million rands for the year. I'll actually touch on what actually influences the revenue on the next slides. Cost of sales of 2.2 billion rands, which showed a 244 million rands. I have some slides that actually now touch on the contributors of cost of sales. So those will be all the expenses that go into cost of sales. We then report a gross profit of 3 billion rands. There's a 100 million rand increase on the gross profit. But if you look at our gross profit percentage, it's reduced a bit from 60% last year to 58%. I will also touch on what actually contributed on that. And then we had other operating and administrative expenses, which increased by about 464 million rands. And then we reported separately the credit losses. These are losses that we report because some of our customers are not paying us on time, or they haven't paid us in a while. We reported about 580 million rands. This then gave us profit from operations of 606 million rands, a reduction of 314 million rands from last year. And then we had net finance income of 554 million, which then actually got us to a total of 1.1 billion rands, or rounded up 1.2 billion rands, against 1.241 billion rands last year. So there is a 79 million slight deficit from last year. Now, just touching on the revenue. Revenue is very much affected by sales and tariffs. But if you remember, in this financial year, the minister on average actually approved a tariff of about 3.58%. So that's the increase we had to actually effect to our customers. And you can see that the volumes as well, they only increased by 3.2%. Our biggest contributor in terms of the sales volumes was eThekwini municipality with 409 million kiloliters. Our total kiloliters that we supplied for the year to all our customers was 580 million kiloliters. Chemicals, these are cost drivers to our cost of sales. And one of the cost drivers, if I have to start with chemicals, we reported a cost of about 146 million on chemicals, but it represented about a 12% growth year on year. And this increase was due to the average price and usage per kilogram of about 20% and 27% respectively. Durban Heights and DV Harris plants, as well as Wiggins, contributed to a higher usage due to the heavy rains that were impacting on our raw water turbidity, resulting in us actually having to use more chemicals. Energy, which is mainly our electricity and any backup generators that we've actually had to utilize, increased by 18%. And the increase of 18% is actually affected by both the increase in tariff from Eskom, but also the usage increases. And the average price increase for the year, just on using Amashaf pumps, was about 51%. And Wiggins high lift increased by about 7%. To service the demand that we were actually experiencing. So obviously, with even the aqueducts having been offline due to the floods, we then had to utilize a lot of shaft pumps to pump the water on our backup systems, which then actually increased the power that we actually had to utilize. But the average price increase for the year was about 10%. But if you include the usage plus the 10% average price increase, it then averages itself around 18%. Maintenance, we had to do a lot of maintenance in the current financial year, inclusive of fixing some of the waterworks that were affected slightly by the floods. But also those maintenance costs increased by 38%. And this is due to some renewal costs that we actually had to incur, where we had to actually renew some of the items within our plants, and then the refurbishment of plants at various Durban Heights area pump stations. Just continuing on these drivers of cost of sales. Our direct staff costs increased only by 7%. This increase was due to, one, there were overtime costs that were incurred during the time when we were still trying to respond to the issues that actually came out of from floods. But also, there's also an element of the standard pay increases. As you will understand, we have agreements with our labor stakeholders where we have to have discussions around pay increase for staff members. Raw water costs slightly decreased, but that decrease, we actually picked up the decrease based on the fact that one of our clients, King Echwayo District Municipality, did receive a reduction in their tariff for potable water against City of Umhlatuze, who supplies them. And obviously, we then actually benefited from that reduction in tariff. That's the reason where, in effect, we then had a 2% decrease on the raw water cost. Other operating and admin costs, they increased by 29%, and net finance income increased by 75%. But on the operating and admin costs, the contributors here were obviously the big number in these costs will be our indirect staff costs. This is not the increase, this is the actual cost for indirect staff. And then you had asset impairments of about 292 million rands, where we had to impair some of our assets. And then we have this big number, credit losses of about 580 million rands. Obviously, this we classify as a key financial risk on our side because we incur that because some of our customers are not paying us or they are paying us late, and thus we have to account for that credit loss. And then on net finance income, we actually generated net finance income of about 555 million rands. And the main reason here is that because we came from the previous year, we came from the lockdowns due to COVID-19 pandemic, which actually delayed some of the project implementation. But also, we also had site interruptions and site stoppages and protests that would have also affected. So whilst there's delays in project implementation, we normally would then take the funds and actually plow them or invest them so that they actually generate more income. The bulk water cost per kiloliter, where we then say, let's take all our costs as an organization and then divide it by the kiloliters that we actually have to supply our customers. You'll see there's a slight 3% increase in the bulk cost. But as I say, that increase, we said here, when we try to analyze and look at, it's all the cost drivers that we've spoken about, but also based on the indirect costs, those asset impairments and write-offs that we've actually reported also have an impact on the 3% growth on the cost per kiloliter of bulk water. Then the profit, I did report that our profit was 1.162 billion rands. It represents a 6% decrease in our costs. But this reduction in profit, as I said, it's actually a culmination of the total cost increases of about 12%, and we did actually speak about the high chemical usage that we actually had to hit due to poor quality raw water because of the floods, but also these asset write-offs I was speaking about, as well as the credit losses, they have actually affected. Just to make an example, if all our municipalities or customers were actually paying us the 580 million, we would be reporting 1.7 billion rands as a profit number this year. The statement of financial position, which is our balance sheet, we then report at a high level that our total assets, our asset base has grown from 16.1 billion rands up to 17.6 billion rands, and there's a 1.4 billion rand increase on our asset base. Whilst if you look at our capital reserves, we reported 13.1 billion rands of capital reserves, and these have now increased to 14.4 billion rands, making a 1.256 billion rand increase. Obviously, the 1.256 would be last year's profit, which we then actually built into our reserves, as the organization's mandate is that all surpluses, we then replow those surpluses back into project implementation. So we keep them as reserves, and then we utilize them for our capital expenditure programs. This is just to then further analyze the balance sheet. I think if we look at the capital expenditure, the CAPEX program, you will notice that we actually, in 2022, we had 943 million rands worth of CAPEX. I think this represented about 49% spend. And obviously we had an impact because if you remember 2021, that's when we had the COVID pandemic, where there were interruptions due to these lockdowns that were actually happening. But we also had a lot of site interruptions in this time, which then actually had an impact on how we then delivered that 943. Then in the 2023 year, sorry, this is not supposed to be 2022, it's budget 2023, supposed to be 969 million. We then actually did 1.7 billion rands in CAPEX in the current financial year. Our plan for the next financial year, we've become very optimistic. We are actually now targeting 2.9 billion rands as our CAPEX program, I think, going forward. Our investments, they've grown by 13%, and obviously the investments grow because, as I say, we've got excess cash that comes from either our profits and our reserves, and all cash that we actually hold we then actually take to investments so that we then can get high yielding interest rates and then have more money to then continue to deliver on our mandate, which is project implementation and supply of bulk potable water. Debtors days have reduced from 61 days down to 44. So whilst we have the issue of credit losses for some of the customers, this impact, and I will say this, I've seen Ubab Makanya is here, just to recognize that eThekwini being a 75%, contributing 75% of our revenue, pays us on time, all the time. So obviously, we are actually benefiting from the fact that our major customer there pays us on time. And that's the reason why you have then that significant reduction. We have actually tried to also tighten up on credit control with other customers as well before the end of the financial year, which is also contributed a little bit on the reduction of the 44 days. The debt to equity ratio has remained constant compared to prior year, and this is because we have not borrowed in the current financial year, and we're not planning to borrow the next year. I think we're going to start actually borrowing in 2026. This is mainly driven by our capital expenditure program of about 13 billion rands that we need to actually deliver within the next 5 years. So some of the money will come from our reserves, but we'll have to actually go out to the market. So you might actually see this gross debt to equity ratio then starting to actually go up. I'm happy to report as well that all our loan covenants in the loans that we currently have with our funders were met, so there were no breach of covenants. We met all the indicators that are required by our borrowers. In terms of borrowing limits of where we're supposed to borrow, National Treasury normally gives us limits of how much we can borrow. You will notice that we've only borrowed about 1 billion rands, and our limit is sitting at 2.1 billion rands. So we are within the borrowing limits. We are trying to build that one up because we've applied to Treasury looking at the CAPEX program to say we need to start building up the limits so that we are in a position when we need to borrow, we are not actually constrained by these limits. On the cash flow, this is just to analyze how we move cash during the financial year. I think the big thing to just highlight here is that we actually, our net, we've utilized 534 million rand cash in cash and cash equivalents compared to last year where we utilized 1.28 billion rand. So we've actually spent 714 million rands less in the current financial year. Our closing balance of 291 million rands in terms of the cash. We take all the cash, as I said, to investments. So we hold very little cash towards the end of the financial year so that we can actually accumulate bigger interest amounts in terms of those investments. So as you will see, we were holding much less cash in the current financial year. And this is just a further explanation of these cash flows from operations, which I'll just jump. And then I like to always touch on irregular expenditure because as we know, it's one area that actually starts reflecting as a mirror in terms of governance and compliance in the organization. The cumulative irregular expenditure for the 2022-2023 year amounted to 2.5 billion rands. This includes an amount that I reported last year of 1.938 billion rands that would have been carried forward from last year. That means that the current irregular expenditure that we are reporting in the 2022-2023 is 567 million. And this mainly includes these multi-year contracts that have been carried over from the previous financial years. Contract management, which related to non-compliance with Instruction Note 3, amounted to about 130 million rands for the year. This relates to the prior year as well. There were deviations from supply chain management processes which were not found to be compliant that amounted to about 100 million rands for the year. Now, what measures is the organization actually taking? One, the board has a zero tolerance. They've taken a zero tolerance attitude towards irregular expenditure. All irregular expenditure is to be taken to independent investigations, and we can actually confirm that other than the declared for the current year, all irregular expenditure for the previous years is either under investigation or investigations have been completed. We're in the process of implementing those recommendations from the investigations, or consequence management has been done, and obviously we are busy in the process of trying to then apply for condonation with Treasury. We are also conducting probity audits now prior to award, because we picked up that some of this irregular expenditure is just errors where scorings are actually done in error, and thus we've added an extra layer of assurance where prior to the bid or prior to award, we then perform probity audits, and these are done by independent service providers as well, through internal audit, to then ensure that we don't have any errors and all compliances are in place. We've also looked at the improving internal controls within the supply chain management section, to then ensure that people understand the processes. This is inclusive of just increasing the checklists that people must then sign off on. There is a clean audit task team that is busy with the implementation of the investigation recommendations. This is from now strengthening the internal controls, but also following up on all the disciplinary processes that need to actually be concluded for each of the irregular expenditures, and then following up as well on the progress of all the investigations that are ongoing. The chairperson did touch on the SIU investigations, which some are ongoing, and some reports have been finalized and I think are being tabled in front of the board. I think, as I said initially, the entity has maintained its reputation as a financially viable entity. It's still an SOE, but I feel that we are still creating significant value for customers and our shareholder. Customer perspective is delivering the quantities of potable water that are required by our customers. Over and above that, with the surpluses that we actually are generating, investing those surpluses into capital expenditure projects, future capital expenditure projects that will actually assist in actually providing supply for the increase in the population in the areas that we actually supply. And these strong results were achieved because of sound financial management in the year. Notably, it would have been the generation of revenue at 5.3 billion rands, and the net surplus of 1.2 billion rands, as I've stated. And we still have balance sheet reserves of about 14.4 billion rands compared to the 13.2 from the previous financial year. The end surplus, as I mentioned, we then invest those into our 5-year 13.9 billion rand capital investment program, as well as we're going to use some of these surpluses to then also start repaying some of the debt that we have, so that we try and actually balance going to the market to borrow with trying to redeem some of the debt that will be due in due course. I would like to stop there and thank you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Donga. I think some of the key takeaways from me, that a AA+ rating from the rating agencies, I think if Fitch it was, is actually indicative of a fact that we are an organization that is financially stable, but more concerningly, apologies. One of the issues that the media really had a keen interest on earlier, and true to his chivalrous nature, that the CFO adroitly dodged answering the question was what he actually mentioned now, that of errant customers. They really wanted to know which municipalities weren't paying us. But now that this is the platform, I think it's important that we discuss these issues. Of course, we would not hang out our dirty linen in public, but like I say, we need to discuss these issues and see the impact that they have, because at the same time as we got the A++ rating, one of the risks that Fitch did say could downgrade uMngeni-uThukela going forward was non-revenue water loss, as well as the issue of non-payment of municipal debt. So as I welcome my next speaker onto the podium, uNzima, to give us the state of our infrastructure plans with the operational report. Thank you.
Thank you, Program Director. Many thanks and greetings once more to the chairperson of the board, our stakeholders, chief executive and colleagues. I think the numbers have been displayed, and as we say, numbers speak. So for me, what I just need to do is, usually you justify the numbers when you have not performed. But in this case, I think it's to elevate some of the key items during the reporting period, not necessarily to justify the numbers as presented and the performance as such. I think in the main, we want to talk about the water supply, because we supply water and we treat wastewater as a service. And in our province, in KwaZulu-Natal, the demand is around 2,000 million liters per day. And the supply area that we supplied in the previous financial year, we managed to supply 1,500 million liters per day of water. So it shows that with the reconfiguration, in terms of what still needs to be done, yes, in terms of the landscape, it may look scary, but in terms of volumes, it's not far off. We are talking 70% already that we already producing for the province. So comparing to the previous financial year, this was a 3% increase year on year. And from the wastewater treatment side, there was not much increase, it was stable. However, I think with the latest developments, with the acquisition of eThekwini's wastewater, 10 of those, there will be a huge increase in this year's reporting at the end of the financial year. So this will take this from 84 megaliters per day, will add about 360 megaliters per day. It's a significant volume increase. So we look forward to that. So I think what is important also in the water supply is for us to note and always have at the back of our mind is that the world average consumption per capita is 173 liters per person per day, and South Africa average is 235. I think it's important that we have this at the back of our mind so that we can map out the real challenge that we face, given that also South Africa is a water scarce country. As we proceed, like any business, we have our strategic risks. I think for this forum, I would like to just highlight on the two risks that are giving us sleepless nights. From our risk framework, we want to keep all our strategic risk at tolerable levels. And when we respond to the risks, we want to have a response effectiveness that is above 55%. The two that I would like to elevate are the ability to deliver projects on time and on budget. That's number one. Number two, ability to meet current and future demands. The first one, I think it's challenges that faces the country in general, where we encounter work stoppages in executing projects, and we encounter some delays through land acquisitions and getting way leaves to implement infrastructure. I think that's a generic problem that the country is facing So we are also faced with that problem. For the ability to meet current and future demands, it's a huge problem. As I've mentioned, that in terms of the demands, we are above the world average in terms of consumption. However, we cannot dwell on that. People still need water. So in the main, one of the key issues that make us not sleep around this point is the delays in implementing our largest infrastructure for the 2050 horizon, which is the uMngeni project. So until that project moves and is on the ground, we'll probably be comfortable and be at an okay stage. But at this stage, we are pleased that we know that it is proceeding very well in terms of public consultations from the stakeholders involved. So this is very critical for us. These are the two key strategic risks that I wanted to elevate at this stage. In terms of our water resources adequacy, I think there we're talking about the availability of water from the source, and the plans, as I will show in our key infrastructure that we have planned for the next 5 years. If you can get the uMngeni project, which is being implemented by the Trans-Caledon Authority and uMngeni-uThukela, in terms of water resources, the Smithfield Dam will be probably the third largest in the country. It's 81 meters of wall, dam wall, I think behind the Harib Dam. So that will be a huge plus for us. And also in the Herikwala and Uku, we have directives to implement dams there, 2 dams, Stephen Dlamini Dam and the Kwabeni of Channel Storage Dam. So those will assist improve supply security in the south and central areas of our operational area. Also, the Hazelmere Dam, I think the wall was raised by the Department of Water and Sanitation. We are yet to impound. We're still finalizing a few meters there, but that will surely increase supply also in the north. So we are looking forward to those projects as we proceed. In terms of quality, I think the audience in this session is mostly our customers, so I think this is well articulated. We pride ourselves, we subscribe to national standards and relevant authorities for wastewater effluent, and we are comfortable to report that we don't have issues in terms of quality of our products. Infrastructure stability is very critical. We have a variety of infrastructure in terms of age. Some of the infrastructure was installed back in the 50s. We have new infrastructure that we've recently put in place. And unfortunately last year we had floods, so we were affected. So of the budgeted 1.6 billion capital expenditures for the financial year, we were able to spend above that at 1.7 billion. And inclusive in this is 26% of rural development schemes, which is part of our shareholder compact target. So as we do our projects, we try and strike that balance. And also in the recovery of the floods, we would like to report that the damage to our largest plant, which is Durban Heights raw water conveyance, we have been able to restore supply there, even though we were utilizing redundancy systems, which are energy intensive. But in December, the first pipe was commissioned in December last year. And the shut that we experienced, I think, a few days back, was as a result of bringing back online Aqueduct number 2. So resilience of our infrastructure is important. When we did this repair, it was not just a straight normal repairs. These were designed to deal with such events, to be resilient enough. We've just shown a picture there of one of the break sites. There were 8 in total. So this is just one of the break sites, and we are happy that this is coming along nicely. In terms of our key infrastructure for the next 5 years, what we deem is key, I think in the uMngeni system, most of our colleagues here, customers would know that the system is constrained, and our saving grace would be the lower uMngeni and the upper uMngeni system. The lower uMngeni in the medium term which will bring relief to the system with about 100 megaliters per day. That will be around 2026, 2027. And then in the long term is the uMngeni project, which should come online around about 2030, 2032. This will bring to the system 500 megaliters per day of water, but upgradable to 625 megaliters per day. So these are the critical projects for the inner south and central supply systems. And a variety of projects are planned in the 5-year horizon. This includes wastewater also. As you see in the list, we have the uMngeni wastewater works. We have uMngeni wastewater works, and in the current financial year, we completed the Davil wastewater treatment works. That's a R1 billion plant upgrade from 65 to 100 megaliters per day. Sometimes you have to justify the numbers, so to justify the spend of the 1.7 billion. So in that, there was the aqueducts repair, and there was the Greater Mpofana project. There was a Greater Mpofana project, which is a 20 megaliter per day scheme, which was commissioned also in this financial year, in the past financial year. So these are some of the projects that were done. And looking forward, the combination of these projects include rehabilitation, because our infrastructure is a combination of all the new infrastructure. We have to maintain that. Durban Heights, you would see that there is a Durban Heights filter upgrade there. It's an old plant. You have to make sure that its integrity remains. And you still have your cabin of channel storage that's to increase resiliency in your storage system. And also your expansion projects. Your Mshwati Phase 4 is an expansion type of a project where you use the existing source to reach other consumers. I think to just elevate the uMngeni project, I know most of us know about this project, but briefly, this project will take water from the uMngeni River and will supply about 5 million people, mostly in eThekwini, but we have uMngeni that will benefit also from the scheme and other WSAs. So the project is implemented by both TCTA and uMngeni-uThukela. TCTA implements the raw water component, which is the top part. I don't want to touch it because it's a top left picture there. They will abstract water, build a dam, conveyance system of about close to 40 kilometers to Painsfield, where uMngeni-uThukela will treat water. Will build a plant to treat water there and convey it to Umlaas Road reservoirs and therefore start the distribution to the WSAs. As part of the project, we're looking at energy also. We're looking at hydropower of about 2.5 megawatts as part of this project. And then lastly, in terms of operational optimization, we have to manage water losses. Water losses is not just in the reticulation system, we also have that. As part of the shareholder compact, we target less than 5%, and we've met that. We were at 2% in the reporting period. And also in terms of the shuts, we do also contribute to people not getting water at times. The disruptions in 24 hours, we target not to have disruptions that last more than 24 hours. In the reporting year, we had an unfortunate situation around the Mpofana area resulting from floods, where we were not able to access the pump stations to conduct the repairs. So a combination of those and a few of the load shedding related ones, especially in the small schemes, cumulatively gave 28 days of supply disruptions within a year. But I think with the coming online of the Greater Mpofana scheme, we should not have that problem again. We are just running the Mpofana scheme as a backup. So in terms of the shutdowns that we have experienced, so we have planned and unplanned shutdowns. I think the recent one along the N3 is unplanned. That's the supply to your Point M system. And then the one that was at Durban Heights was a planned one that was bringing on of a project online. So we have a combination of such in terms of shutdowns. But for the festive season, I think our colleagues would know this. We target not to have any planned shutdowns for projects to tie in or to do whatever maintenance. And I think this is agreed up front with the customers. We usually submit plans to that effect to make sure that we will have a peaceful festive season. I think this is why we're forcing the Durban Heights shut to happen now in November, so that we are peaceful. I think also in terms of our maintenance spend, we try to conduct our maintenance in line with industry norms, engineering industry norms, where we spend between 3 and 7% of our PPE. And I think over the years we've done that. So with a slight increase in the previous financial year, that is due to the flood-related maintenance that we needed to conduct. I think lastly, the working together with the municipalities, we try to work with the municipalities. We try to formalize it in a memorandum of understandings. We have a few that assist us to understand the extent of water conservation, demand management within the municipalities, and where possible, we provide the necessary support. I think one that has worked was the start in Mpopomeni area, where we conducted a war on leak project, and that project saw the reduction of water losses by about 20%. As a result, we have business plan for doing a similar exercise in Copsville. And also in the WSAs that we did not have footprint in, we also did some work there in terms of water conservation and demand management, where we understood the landscape, the water conservation setup, and worked with the municipalities to do business plans to assist formulate funding proposals to tackle this beast of water conservation and demand management. Chairperson, my presentation was not to justify the numbers. I think this is why it is very short. Let me end it here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mazibuko, for that presentation. I think the key takeaway from me were the last two slides, and certainly I saw the municipal manager of Msunduzi coming in. You are welcome, sir, and your presence is acknowledged, and you could not have come in at a more opportune time wherein you witnessed a presentation on plans for Umkomazi, where no doubt you will be one of the municipalities to benefit from there. And the preceding presentation had been by the chief finance officer, rather, who assured, as the man whose hands are on the purse strings, that these are not pie in the sky dreams, but are in fact solid plans that are backed by firm guarantees. We have the money, we are not going to the bond market yet. Colleagues, can I now at this stage move on to questions and comments from the audience on all the presentations that have been made here today? I have before me to my left a number of seats. Can I request the board and management members whose names appear on the table to please move to the front, being the board chair, the deputy chair, the acting chief executive, the CFO, as well as the COO acting. I open the floor to questions. We have roving mics. I don't know if my colleagues are at hand to assist with the roving mics. So as we answer the questions, rather ask my apologies. As we ask the questions, can I request that we introduce ourselves as well as the organizations that we represent? Thank you very much. The floor is open, colleagues. I think it will be a welcome relief somewhat to my panelists that Silence means understanding, because in the morning I kept my fingers crossed as the questions from the media kept coming in thick and fast. But that relationship does always tend to be a bit more adversarial. Here we are family. I note Mr. Makanya's hand, the DCM from eThekwini. I also note you, sir, with this hand in particular, because I recognize the face behind the hand. It's a media colleague. Can I hold on to you? We will probably do a one-on-one. I would like to focus on our stakeholders, please. Mr. Makanya, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairperson, the board members, the CE, the municipal managers here that are present, and the colleagues. It's basically comments on my side. Maybe let me start by congratulating you for achieving the unqualified audit as a first point. And secondly, noting the irregular expenditure and the action taken to deal with it. And as well, I've noted the net surpluses, but we'll discuss this when we are discussing the tariffs. Lastly, I think Usanele touched on the issue of us being a good paying customer. This festive season, we really need to work hard to make sure that we win back the customers or the visitors back to KwaZulu-Natal. If you recall, the main reason why they are moving towards Cape Town is the issue of water and sanitation. Over the past 3 years, we've been having challenges. The 1920 and the 2021, it was COVID. Last year, it was the issue of the flood, as acting COO has mentioned. So we've got this challenge to make sure that this time around, I think you are badly affected just like us in terms of the aqueducts, but I'm well aware that you've managed to fix the problem. But I think we need to work together to actually make sure that this festive season it's a good one. Must remember, when we're doing well as Itegu, you are also doing well as uMngeni. So we'll urge colleagues to work very closely with us in terms of making sure that everything goes normal. It's even more, I think you are now more involved, as well as Sanele again mentioned, that we'll be dealing with the issue of sanitation with you guys as our implementing agent. I have actually engaged the operations team to make sure that almost every Friday up until December 25, we meet to check our set of readiness, particularly for the festive season, because I believe it's our collective responsibility to make sure that customers come this way. We can do our part, but unless we work together, it will be impossible to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makanya. Is there another hand? Go ahead, sir.
I guess Bong, Uchabanoga Kamini from uMngeni-uThukela districts. Thanks for the presentation, colleagues, and greetings to everyone and the board members. For mine, short, thanks for the presentation, Sanele. But I was hoping you will also touch on the recent water curtailment that has been introduced to municipalities as it affects water supply to our customers, especially our rural communities as they come from uMngeni-uThukela. But also, we thank you for the presentation, also noting the intervention or the support that uMngeni is also putting in assisting municipalities on issues of water demand management. I think we're the first beneficiary in Bafumani area where uMngeni also assisted us in reducing our water losses within those areas. But furthermore, as you know, there are still issues within uMngeni-uThukela, especially if you look at Umshwati Park line, coming all the way from Msunduzi to Umshwati, the issues of water loss within that pipeline. As much as the pipeline has been handed over to uMngeni-uThukela, but it's still being operated by uMngeni Water. And the number of water losses on that pipeline is magnificent. And also looking within the pipeline from Msunduzi again to Richmond, although we have a challenge, as we know, of illegal connections within those pipelines, but also an intervention needs to be put in place in ensuring that we reduce our losses that are happening, especially on those two a pipeline between Msunduzi and Richmond and Msunduzi to Umshwati LM. And also on your presentation, I also noted that you are considering a support in terms of back meters, of which is something that we have a challenge on in terms of replacing those back meters for water conservation and demand management. I think we would also appreciate the supports because we've recently approved a business plan for that, and I'm hoping that we'll sit again and engage on this one. And also, just to remind you again that we also put a request for assistance in terms of Umbofana Park, as much as uMngeni have taken a pipeline from Spring Grove to Emo River, but they wanted requests for a pipe to cross over to Umshwati to ensure, to Emo River, to ensure that in future the challenges we had in terms of flooding never affect us again. So it's something that we still need to engage with uMngeni, and we thank them for the support they've been giving us. And we are sure that if we continue working together like we've been doing, there's still more to achieve. With uMngeni coming in as well, it will assist us. But also, unfortunately for us, our communities are not as good as we are in terms of payment. So we do have that gap in terms of having revenue. As much as we try to pay you in time, like at the Durban Metro, but unfortunately our customers are mostly rural, and we still do have this challenge of revenue, which is something that we're working on. Thank you.
Bata, if you can come to the front, I see two hands. I note your hand, Mapoloba. Can we begin with the lady? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director. I am Dr. Tuli Mwelase from Ugu District Municipality. I've got 3 points from me. Firstly, I would like to congratulate uMngeni-uThukela Water and Ugu for the recently approved Okwabeni Dam, which Mr. Mazibuko spoke about. If you know the background of the project, then you will understand that it was such a huge milestone for us to have it approved, and considering the impact that it will have on the ground. So one does appreciate that. But Program Director, I would also like for uMngeni-uThukela Water to look at the time frames for this project. In the recent meeting, there was a presentation given, and as much as I appreciate that there must be a lot of planning that goes into it, but considering that the times that we are in, considering the election year that we are heading to, and the fact that this has been a project that has been waited for quite some time and people are in dire need, this is one project that will make a huge impact. I would like to request that perhaps colleagues can really look at the time frames and adjust as much as possible so that we can see the real dust on the ground as soon as possible. The second one, I noted that there has been partnerships in as far as water conservation and water demand management with other stakeholders or other municipalities. I would like to request uMngeni to look into this with us as well. I am saying this because a majority of our systems are already running with demand exceeding supply. That is a majority of our systems which are really struggling. And I believe that if we can partner and look into the water conservation and water demand management interventions, we will be able to realize some savings in as far as as the water supply is concerned, so that we can be able to meet its demand, and that will also assist us to augment already the existing systems without really having to build new ones. So it will buy us time. I will really love to see us partnering in as far as that is concerned. And the last one is, I do want to appreciate the current relationship that we have on a number of things. Recently, we've just set and developed our peak season planning for the peak season that we are heading to, and we believe that it was a success. Already, we have managed to achieve some of the things or targets that we've put to say this must be done before the peak season, in preparation for the peak season, and those are already yielding positive results. So I do want to appreciate the colleagues that we are working with, that I feel that we are more ready for the peak season because of those plans that we have set down and had them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mwelase. Can you please pass the mic to the Msunduzi Municipal Manager, please? Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Chair. Let me apologize for coming a bit late. We were meeting with the National Disaster Management Center, so the meeting took much longer than expected. Let's just appreciate that we have been invited to this presentation by uMngeni-uThukela Water Board. I think I must re-emphasize, Chair, that we have a very good working relationship with the board and the executive management, which has resulted in us achieving quite a number of targets that we had set ourselves. We are one of the bad payers, Chairperson. I'm looking at this issue, Chairperson, at the time and the current state of the finances at the municipality. And I'm looking at whether is the board or the Department of Water and Sanitation not considering giving bad payers like ourselves debt relief, as it has happened with, as ESCOM is doing. I'm raising this, Chair, because we are servicing non-paying customers. The bulk of our customers are not paying. And they are in black communities, they are Africans. They are not paying, Chair, at all. And they are not going to, by look of things, they are not even going to pay tomorrow. So that's the reality that is facing us. On the money that we spend to buy the bulk water, what we recover, Chair, is almost 40%. Which means it will take us 20 years to pay your debt. Remember that every month we've got to buy water. Every month, because it is a human right, we've got to provide water every month. I'm raising this issue, Chair, because it's one of the issues we're going to raise tomorrow when we meet with uMngeni. We're meeting with the executive management tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
That is correct.
And it's one of the issues that we're going to engage on, because we think that as it is happening in government, it is happening with other parastatals and everyone, where government intervenes. We believe that even in this water sector, there must be an intervention that is done. Otherwise, these municipalities are going to collapse. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Perhaps can I propose, I note your hands there, can I propose that we address the questions and comments that have been raised before we take the next round of hands? Board Chairperson, I hand over to you.
I think I've been handed the mic, but the nature of what I was listening to, I think, would be addressed on my left and on my right hand side. But just a comment on the last speaker's plea. I think I like when he said there is a meeting tomorrow. So we can't then preempt what they will be presenting at a meeting tomorrow, except that I think he was sensitizing everybody gathered here that they probably are one of the bad payers. I think it's a statement he used. But from where I'm seated, listening to I think the relevance to a bailout, I'm aware of a bailout that ESCOM, I think, is applied, I think, by ESCOM, but it's a treasury-driven bailout. So the funds lies in treasury, hence ESCOM, I think, in the nature of the growth in the debt, so they needed that relief. He made some worrying statement when he says a debt might be paid in 20 years. So when you look at the projects which the board, I think, as Mr. Mazubugo was sharing with everybody, how the board is committing to extend the services, which is water, to the communities that were not previously serviced by the board, then it would mean that those reserves that we probably have are negligible, because we will have to deal with, and Sunduzi, one of the major municipalities. I think I'm not pronouncing early, Dr. Mapoloba, that you would present tomorrow, but it's troubling. Probably tomorrow you go to a meeting with a bankable proposition to the executive management. Thanks. Can I hand over to Acting CEO?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the comments from Mr. Makanya and the other colleagues. The one point before Sanele maybe takes on it from Jabulani, UMDM, there are a number of issues you have raised, some which deal with the leaks and all the other areas. There's a need of a meeting quickly. Maybe after Msunduzi, we will have to meet with you because of many areas that must be taken care of, including the theft of water in that pipeline that is going to Richmond, though it may have problems, but we need to deal with other issues that we cannot dwell on here that were not in our presentations. So I would call for e-management to meet with uMDM and deal with other issues. But Usanele will then talk to the areas that you have raised and that were raised.
Thank you, Dr. Manana. Thanks very much for the comments, colleagues. We have noted with thanks, and we will comply, Babu uMngeni, with the weekly meetings as suggested. I think coming to the curtailment as raised by Babu Jabulani, we have responded to DWS because of over-abstracting in the uMngeni system, and with a plan that was informed by all our WSAs, which we appreciate. And we had proposed a delayed start for that implementation plan. However, the department has responded negatively, requesting us that we implement the plan immediately. We will further discuss this with the department through the various doors within the department to try and get some form of exemption in a short period, but we will have to implement such that we are within the permit. So we also note the issues relating the water conservation and demand management. I think what Dr. Manana also spoke of will form part of that. And in our engagements, I think we will formalize the relationship as requested. That's both for UMDM and UKU. So we will gladly do that. It will assist all of us to make sure that the water we supply is utilized as planned. The Durban of Channels storage dam, I think we are also happy that we finally signed the implementation agreement. And just to highlight that we are also working in the background for that to make the appointments. We're just going to stop at the point of appointment because we would need to prove to AG that we appointed when there was commitment. So there was work going on to that effect. However, I think it is easier to put a plan of action to fast track when you already have a contractor on site. So we commit to have a look at it, and we'll do our best. We understand the need for the dam. I think, yeah, the CFO will deal with the Mpofana request. It's a funding request to do that pipeline.
Acting COO is putting me on the spot. Obviously, whatever funding request, we then sit down and review within our funding constraints, and then we look into it. But obviously, we'll sit with the acting COO and look into it. But I also wanted to maybe touch on the issue of just the debts, as well as I think there's been an outcry more than once on the issues of non-revenue water and municipal assistance on issues of non-revenue water. And I'd like to just make mention that we've recently had tariff consultations with most of our customers, actually all of our customers, where I think the big discussion was around the fact that we probably need to start looking at the water business value chain outside of silos. We can't then sit and say, because uMngeni supplies bulk water, we're not worried about reticulation. Or because we supply bulk water, we're not worried about dam maintenance and catchment management. I think those silos need to start breaking a little bit. And then when those silos break, it means we need to have interactions where we sit with municipalities, understand their management accounts, income statement of the water business. Are they making money off the water business? And I think we would like to acknowledge, the honesty from Ubaba Poloba, from Umsundozi, on the fact that he's right. Of the 100% water that he purchases, he's only recovering 40%. And the other 60%, it's either people are not paying, it's going through leaks, there's wrong billings. There are people who say they are indigent who are not indigent. And I think we need to start addressing those key areas, get the independent, the indigent registers right in all municipalities. Then go back to Treasury and say, if you are giving me R1 million for indigent grant, but I'm actually sitting with 10 million rands worth of indigent people in my area, which means my area is a social area and I need more money. Two issues of water leaks. I think whilst we can assist with identifying leaks, I don't think our balance sheet as well as an organization will be able to then fund the fixing of leaks. But I think once you've discovered leaks, it's a fundable model to then go to the funders and say, this will pay itself, because as soon as you've closed the leaks, you are actually generating savings, which then actually will reduce your demand. It means you are buying less from us as the bulk suppliers. Once you are buying less, you are still collecting from your customers, because some of the leaks that we talk about is actually illegal connections. that you need to also deal with. So I think somehow that discussion actually needs to go. I see that there's a big outcry whilst we were trying to talk a little bit on some of the initiatives that we are assisting certain clients on non-revenue water. We probably, I think it's a task for the water board and the board to then sit down and have a plan, because I don't think we also can be able to assist everyone in one financial year. But if we can then maybe rationalize the assistance, we probably can get to a point where we then maybe, even if we chip in 20% of the total province's leaks and water losses, I think we would have achieved a lot, I think, as a value chain, not just as municipalities or as a water board or as a Department of Water and Sanitation. Thank you.
I think there was also a request from Uku. I don't know if that one's been addressed. Dr. Mwelase had a few requests to make around 12 minutes. Okay, it's covered. All right. There was a hand, but oh yes.
Thanks for the opportunity. My name is uMngeni-uThukela from Standard Bank. Just a question I had, I think it was partly answered by the CFO, which was around indigent areas and ensuring that we reduce water leaks. But my question was, how, I think uMngeni-uThukela has done well by actually improving the revenue collection there from 61 to around 40. And I think that's very impressive. And it's going to become very important, especially with the expansion program. In 2026, you are going to need more funding. And if by improving your water collection or ensuring that, you get your revenue on time, you'll actually rely less on debt or interest. You won't have as much interest charges. So I think it's important to look at how have you improved water collection, ensure that you enhance that, and that will improve, your reliance on debt. So I think if there are any other points over and above indigent areas and water leaks, please, I'd like to know, how can you actually improve collection? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bata, is there another hand you had indicated at the back? No? Okay, we'll take to do this submission as the last one for now.
I think, and thanks for the comment and the question. I think the issue of indigent areas, so I think probably we need to then, whilst I said we must break the silos of the different, the value chain, as a water board, we are still doing bulk supply. So we don't go from us to the household, we go from us to the municipality. The municipality will then go from them to the household, which is the users. So the indigency actually happens at that reticulation level where you then have households at the end. But I think on improving the water collection on indigent areas, I think it will be more on a question of going through to the municipalities, because they are the ones who then have indigent registers. I was merely mentioning that if we do break down those silos, we could also, as a water board, then be sitting and trying to then see how we can assist the municipality, because we don't have to only assist on the technical side of things where it's pipelines and all of those activities. We do have also a finance team that can look at municipalities' management accounts, understand whether the billings are correct in terms of what is sitting there as being billed. but also maybe have an initiative where we look at these indigent registrars, audit them, have an exercise where you go check whether people are indigent or not. And then obviously try and have that as a credible record, because we need to start picking up where the leakage is in terms of profitability and sustainability of the water business as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Mtutuzi. Is it Mtutuzi, ne? Okay. The issue goes maybe beyond technical and financial, and it becomes a cultural practice within the governance frameworks of municipalities. The department, especially the DG himself and his colleagues did a study that they presented at a symposium in May on how our tariffs in South Africa across the country are not cost reflective, and how municipalities in their organizational structure get it wrong to get that you are not able to pinpoint what you have collected from the water services, and therefore your finances become cluttered, and you are not able to then say this is what we have collected. So what you are referring to, besides the water demand conservation and management strategies, the department is looking at the governance, the way positions and posts are structured in each municipality to be controlled or to be made uniform, so that the water business can be much more managed and structured at that level. In Africa as a whole, there are many shades of this kind of water management that come from our colonial past as to how Kenya does it. We are learning from all of those countries that used to be controlled by Britain versus that used to be controlled by France. And there are many studies that are going on. But in South Africa, the problem is on governance when it comes to how the water as a cost recovery commodity is managed. So on the water management side, we can't sit back and say we are bulk, but we need to work together to even assist in municipalities to have national treasury or COGTA to prescribe departments and collection mechanisms at that level. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manana and the panelists at large. I take it that there are no further inputs to be made.
Shumane, just to apologize for the chairperson, he's taking an SAFM interview. He just left early.
Noted with thanks, Doc. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been my pleasure to steer these proceedings. Where I may have erred, please do forgive me. It sometimes gets high-pressured and you forget to observe the necessary protocols, but I trust I did not leave anyone behind. And just my plea in particular to the municipalities that spoke to raise issues that they have. We are the stakeholder engagement team in the Office of the Chief Executive, and we plead with our communications counterparts as well as our intergovernmental relations counterparts from municipalities to raise these issues with us so that we may elevate them more expeditiously, so that come next year when we again meet, we've got solutions to them. Once again, thank you very much. I am told that there are some refreshments that will be served. That's really not my department, but I trust that the colleagues outside will accordingly direct us in that direction. Once again, thank you very much.